So we're out here today slip bobbering crappie on Pymatuning Lake in western Pennsylvania. Today I'm using Bobby Garland plastic. This is my favorite color, the electric chicken. The water is just a little bit dingy here, so I've got a 1/16 ounce jig. It's my 2 3/4 inch Thill slip bobber. I prefer these slip bobbers because the way they lay down if it's an upbite. 3/0 sinker. We'll just rig these as normal, nothing fancy. The electric chicken, hands down in dirty water, just works. The little swimmer, I like it because it has a little bit of action. Little tiny paddle tail, just gives it a little more kick when these fish are a little finicky. In this dirty water, it really adds a little bit of extra spice to the lure. Slip bobbering, I'm running just straight 5-pound fluorocarbon, touch fluorocarbon with no leader, no braid. I prefer a 10-foot rod when I'm slip bobbering. We're running the Livescope Garmin 126 SV with the paired with the LVS 34 latest and greatest transducer. So we're looking for shallow brush piles. These fish just came off the spawn and they're moving out of the shallows and they're starting to migrate to the deep, so they're kind of hanging out on these really shallow brush. There's a lot of stumps, natural cribs that the parks put on and so put in and so forth. But we're using slip bobbers. I'll find we can't snipe because it's just too shallow and these fish are spooking. So we'll find these brush piles and I've got a slip bobber rigged up real short with a Bobby Garland plastic on it, paired with a Thill float. And I'll just drop right on. We'll get 20, 30 feet away from these brush piles and drop on them. But with the Livescope, we can see, oh, Billy's hooked up there. We can see these fish and kind of pick them off as we go. So it's sniping, but with a slip bobber. It's not the typical, just cast a slip bobber out or bobber out and watch it float for an hour. We're actually targeting these fish and strategically placing the jig right in their face. And if they don't hit, we're moving to the next one. So let's see if I can get right on the crib that Billy just pulled that fish off of. There's a crib right there. And it's reading at 30 feet, 20 feet. I'll zoom in a little bit. I'll put my jig right on top of it. There goes my jig right here. You're seeing it fall. And I'll just work it right back. Kind of missed the target just a hair. This LVS 34, it really is an amazing piece of technology. The 32 that came out just prior to this, well, a couple of years prior, also there was the first real game changer Livescope for Garmin. The 34 has just brought everything a little more crisp. I prefer the blue color palette for forward view. When I'm in perspective, I run the amber palette. You can see right there, I placed working that jig right across the top of that. If I don't see anybody interested or any takers, we're on to the next one. Oh, we got one looking at it right there. Little one bumped it. Yeah, it's not too big a fish. There's a little pile. These are old piles that the state had put in years ago. They're deteriorated a little bit, but the fish still kind of like them. Later on in the year, these will be choked out by weeds. They were just right over top of that brush again, working it right back over. I'll stop it right on top for a second, see if we have any takers. There's one right there. Good one. That's a bass. Oh, he popped off. There's some weeds. You can see some sparse weeds out there. I'm just scanning, looking back and forth to see if I see any more piles or any fish laying. There's a pile right there. That's a good pile, and I can see fish right on top. There's a good fish. There's a good fish. I'm going to re-rig with a minnow and try to get back on them.